Ever thought about what it takes to, like, teach someone to handle a bus? We're doing this deep dive into the world of bus driving instructors today. And wow, these RoleCatcher guides are, I gotta say, packed with surprises.
It's pretty interesting stuff, right? You wouldn't think it's, so nuanced, like you just assume it's all about driving skills.
Yeah, no kidding. Like, one thing that jumped out at me was how important active listening is for this job.
Oh, for sure.
The guide really emphasized that instructors need to make sure students from all different backgrounds feel heard and help them build confidence.
Makes sense when you think about it.
It's not just about telling them what to do, it's about making them comfortable, you know?
Absolutely. And you're shaping the next generation of bus drivers who are going to be responsible for safely transporting people every single day. A big responsibility.
Yeah, no pressure, right. And speaking of responsibility, there was this whole part about certifications. Apparently, having a Class B CDL with a passenger endorsement is really key.
Right, you can have that.
The guide was saying that employers really zero in on that because it shows you can actually, walk the walk.
Exactly. It's about credibility. If you're going to tell someone how to drive a bus, you better know how to do it yourself.
Right, you got to practice what you preach. But here's where it gets kind of interesting. The guide also suggested this could be a good path for someone who's, a bit entrepreneurial.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a whole section on, like, starting your own training business.
Yeah, and with the need for bus drivers going up, which the guide mentioned, there's definitely a demand for good instructors.
Yeah, it's like cities are growing, people need to get around.
Exactly.
It seems like a good time to get into that field.
Lots of potential.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The guide dives into how technology is changing things.
Oh, yeah.
We're not just talking about driving around a parking lot anymore. They're talking about, like, simulators and virtual reality and all this cool stuff.
It's pretty amazing the way technology is changing how we learn these days. Driver training is no different. And those tools are great because it gives students a safe space to practice before they get out on the road.
And speaking of technology, it's pretty cool how RoleCatcher itself has all these tools to, help people figure out this whole career thing.
Right. And that's where that part about the different stages of a bus driving instructor's career that the guide goes into, that's really useful.
Totally. Like, they lay it all out, starting with entry level, where you're probably, like, working with the more experienced instructors, getting a feel for the curriculum,
Right.
maybe even helping students with things like parallel parking, which I hear can be a bit tricky.
Yeah, that's always a fun one. But it's all about building those skills early on. The guide really stresses that.
Yeah, makes sense. You got to start somewhere. But it's cool. They also talk about what it looks like to be a seasoned senior instructor. They're basically running the show at that point.
It's true. Leading teams, coming up with new courses, even working with, the people who make the rules, pretty impressive.
Wow, working with the bigwigs. That's a long way from parallel parking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it shows how important it is to keep learning, which the guide talks about a lot. It's not enough to just get your certifications. You got to stay up to date.
Oh, for sure. Things are always changing.
New rules, new technology, new ways of teaching. It's a field where you never stop growing.
I like that. Always learning. And it's not just like theoretical stuff. They have that section, the example profiles, with stories from actual bus driving instructors.
Yeah, those are great. Really gives you a feel for what it's actually like.
Right. And it's so interesting to see how different people got into it. Some were bus drivers before, some came from completely different fields, but they all seem to really love, helping people become better drivers.
Absolutely. It's about empowering people, giving them the skills and the confidence to do something that's, honestly pretty important for society.
It's really cool, hearing those stories. It's like, it really shows you that this isn't just some like niche thing. Anyone can do this as long as they're willing to put in the work. But you mentioned something earlier about technology.
Yeah. Like they were kind of hinting at how with all this new tech coming out, it's going to totally change like how we think about bus driving and obviously how it's taught too.
Right. And it makes you wonder, like, what's going to happen to bus driving instructors in, say, 10 years? Will they be, like, teaching students how to use self-driving buses?
Who knows? It's interesting to think about.
Or, like, what if those virtual reality things get so real that you don't even need to practice in a parking lot anymore?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Like, will they even need those orange cones anymore? It makes you wonder.
Yeah, exactly. But then that also makes you think, like, even with all that tech, those other skills, like being a good listener and connecting with your students, those are still going to be important.
Absolutely. You can't program that stuff.
Exactly. You still need that human touch.
For sure. And I think that's what's so cool about this whole deep dive, We started out talking about how to become a bus driving instructor, but we've ended up talking about like the future of work and like technology and stuff.
I know, right? It's like, it's about way more than just buses now.
It really is. It's pretty thought-provoking.
Yeah, it really makes you think. So to everyone listening out there, whether you're like thinking about a new career or you just found this whole thing super interesting, we hope this deep dive has given you something to think about.
It's definitely not your typical job, but hey, who knows? Maybe one of you listening will end up shaping the future of bus driving. You never know.
That's right, the open road is calling. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time.